if you are sitting there going, man, I haven't been following college football at all, I don't even know who's playing, well, buckle up. We've got you covered here in the College Football Kickoff Show. Have best bets on games you're going to want to hear them break down, not to mention a couple of other games as well with some stats that you're going to want to know before placing any wagers this weekend. And Matt, I'm going to start with you because the game that comes to mind is the one with the team that's got a familiar face for you guys in that Virginia area, only he's playing for North Carolina State. What's going on in this game?
Yeah, it's interesting because Brennan Armstrong goes from having one of his worst seasons probably ever playing football with Virginia to NC State, and he reunites with his offensive coordinator, Robert and I actually had a chance to talk to Brennan down at ACC Media Day last month, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. I mean, obviously, everybody talks about a lot of different quarterbacks in this conference, and they kind of forget about him after what happened last year in Charlottesville, and I think he's going to play really well this season. Now, the question is about his wide receiving core. The Rosner pickup from Rice was a huge one towards the end of camp, so we'll see how much he plays. He's not listed as a starter as in the depth chart yet, but I have a feeling it'll be only a matter of a couple weeks before he picks up this whole offense. The problem with NC State always has been, whenever you expect them to do well, they seem to fall short, whether it's injuries or losing games they're not supposed to. Last year, a lot of it was injuries. Their defense should be pretty solid. They did get Peyton Wilson back for another season, and they hit the road for an odd game against UConn, a team that showed some spunk last year in terms of making a bowl game and playing pretty well in that bowl game. And we talk about the rules changes that are happening in college football. We saw it a little bit in the Navy-Notre Dame game at two teams that wanted to run the ball a little bit. UConn certainly wants to run the ball a lot here, and I think the rule changes come into play a little bit here because I think UConn, if they start getting first downs and they start dragging drives out, this clock is going to tick a lot more than we're used to. So I think the under is kind of worth a look here. Maybe also take a little bit of a look at UConn here, who rarely gets an ACC team in their building. Certainly, there'll be a really excited revenge factor. They got blown out by NC State last time they played, so might look a little bit the home dog, and certainly the under here. I think NC State's defense makes it interesting. I think UConn runs the ball enough to keep the clock running a little bit. So those are my two kind of leans in this matchup here.
Jim Mora bringing back 17 returning starters and looking to improve again in year number 3 there at UConn. So a lot of eyes going to be focused on that game. NC State taking on UConn. And before we head to the Big Ten and another really interesting matchup with some new faces, I do want to let you guys know, if you like this kind of content, if you're looking for great college football breakdowns, previews, picks, props, you've come to the right place. Go ahead. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. More great content all season long available to you as we welcome in Jeff Michaels to the house. And Jeff, you decided to go with a new kid too. Well, kind of maybe the old now new kid over in Nebraska as PJ Flego, reliable in Minnesota, getting, wait, Matt Rule? Is that what we're looking at here? What are you thinking about this matchup?
I think we're going to be looking at a lot of unders here to start in week 1 of the season, and that's kind of where I'm headed for this game too. I mean, with these transfers that we've seen, obviously they have some benefits in the long term, but I really think that it's going to make things difficult and take a little bit of adjustment period for some of these teams. I mean, you mentioned it, Joe. Matt Rule comes in, takes over as head coach, and trying to change the mentality of this team here. He gets a new quarterback. I mean, Jeff Sims transferred from Georgia Tech, who is an all-around playmaker. I mean, he's an athletic quarterback back there, and they do improve their receiving core as well, which should all around make for a noticeably improved offense there for Nebraska. And Minnesota, doesn't quite have as many new faces, but one of the most impactful, quote-unquote, new names, if you want to call it that, is Chris Auden-Bell, who comes back after injury last year at wide receiver. And he's going to be one of their most impactful offensive players. Ibrahim Levin is obviously a game changer, but they did add Sean Tyler, too, from Western Michigan, who is a run-dominant team and could make an impact, almost immediately with the departure of Ibrahim, who made a noticeable difference, a huge difference in the meeting between these two teams last year. I mean, he had 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Nebraska has to be happy to see him gone, but Minnesota had a top 10 defense in the country last year. And their pass rush could probably use a little bit of an improvement long term, but I'm not banking on Nebraska's offense here either in week one. I do think we'll see some noticeable improvements, but I really think that we're going to see some transition periods between these teams that are bringing in new coaches, bringing in multiple new players, especially at the quarterback position in week one. So I would be looking even towards the dog here, but I like the under more than anything in this Big Ten matchup.
Unders have been profitable so far week 0. We'll see if that rolls over into week 1 with some of these, like you said, new faces, new regimes going on in college football. We have another one for you. In fact, that R1L, Mr. Steve Merrill, is going to talk about, and I mean new because, well, Kenny Dillingham, new head coach, young head coach over at Arizona State, has got to try and keep these kids, I don't know, motivated, knowing they just self-imposed a bowl season ban on them, Merrill. Whole lot of new faces for Arizona State. They're home taking on Southern Utah. What are you thinking about in this game?
Yeah, really interesting game to talk about. I know it's on the added board for this one of the weeknight games here, but like you said, Joe, there was so much turmoil last year, and the Herm Edwards era did not last long. He was fired after the 1-2 start. He had lost the players. We, of course, met a family at the meet and greet a year ago whose son was one of the better players there, and they'd said going into the season he'd already lost that team, and that's exactly what happened. So he'd been there actually 4.5 years since 2018 when he took over for Todd Graham. It doesn't feel like he'd been there that long of a tenure, and things really kind of got progressively worse after 8-5 seasons in 19 and 21. Just lost the team last year. Total rebuild here, and it's going to be a very difficult team to handicap out of the gate. So I think this is actually an important game to watch and learn from. Not sure how much we'll learn about Southern beating Southern Utah. They were not a very good team last year, but what's weird about Southern Utah, despite a very mediocre losing season, they beat Sam Houston 17-7 in the finale, a decent Sam Houston team. So this is a Southern Utah team that should be better this year. They've got both a receiver and a linebacker that's on the Senior Bowl watch list. But overall, this is a huge class difference, and it should be a breakout game for Arizona State. The question is, do they treat it as a preseason game, though, because they have Oklahoma State, Fresno State, and USC all on deck before they make their first true road game at California on September 30th. So might take their foot off the gas a little bit. If it's the case, an in-game opportunity with Southern Utah, if they're looking like they're competitive, might present itself in the second half of the fourth quarter. Normally, I'd say maybe play Arizona State first half if they take their foot off the gas. But then again, as we saw with, like, say, USC last week, they got off to a slow start and then turned it on against San Jose State in the second half. These teams don't have a preseason. They don't really have any practice games. They have inter-squad scrimmages only. With all the new moving pieces here at Arizona State, wouldn't be shocked to see a lower scoring first half. So I think a first half under could be worth a look, and then also maybe an in-game play in the second half, depending on if Southern Utah is able to hold their own or not on the line of scrimmage. But Arizona State's going to be a very interesting team to watch this season, and I definitely think we can learn some things from them here in game 1.
A lot of questions on the board in week 1. A lot of new faces, new coaches, a lot of transfers. Now, the good news is if you guys have any questions, drop them down in the comment section here, as these guys will be monitoring all week long. They'll answer any questions that you have about the week 1 schedule. Go ahead, drop those questions in the comment section, and we will get back to you and answer to the best of our ability as we switch over now to best bets on week 1 here, and we'll take it back to Matt Josephs. And Matt, I love where you're going here. You're going to kind of kick it in the, we're going to Virginia, I know that, but only it's in Nashville because they're taking on Tennessee here on Saturday. 4-touchdown favorite Tennessee. I'm seeing a total of 56. How are you approaching this Virginia-Tennessee game?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the under here, and I think, as we do this video, I'll certainly be looking at what Virginia's team total under will be as well, because I think Virginia all year long is going to be a team that you're going to want to take the under. Their offense is just really bad right now. Tony Muskett's their starting quarterback. They didn't really want him necessarily to be the starting quarterback. Jay Wolfpack was going to be the starter most likely, but he decided to focus on baseball, so instead they have the FCS transfer. They've got a solid running game, and they've got a mediocre offensive line, but I think that their offense is just not going to contribute a lot of points. I think their defense is actually pretty good. in terms of, I think they have a decent secondary. Their linebackers aren't terrible. They're going to get a decent pass rush here. So I think they're going to be able to hold their own. The worry is going to be, will all the 3-and-outs that force them to be on the field more, will that be a problem for that defense? You look on the other side, you got Tennessee. Obviously, we know the flash and everything that happened last year with regards to Tennessee's offense. That was Hendon Hooker. Joe Milton's really good. He's got good wide receivers. But I feel like this is one of those games where you kind of get out there, you get your nice little lead, and then you kind of pull back a little bit. We probably don't see everything in the playbook. We probably won't even see everything in the playbook next week because it's not like Tennessee has a tough game next week. But this game being a neutral field in Nashville won't be very neutral, but you know what I mean. I just feel like that this one's going to see a little bit less scoring, a little more running in the second half. So I like the under here at that key number, Joe, that you just mentioned, under here. And certainly look at the Virginia team total under, probably be around 10.5, maybe 11, 12.5. I don't think Virginia is going to add too many points to this matchup.
Yeah, keep an eye on the line here, guys. And, of course, we'll have updates throughout the week here on Wager Talk TV, and that's why it's important. Go ahead, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as we've got plenty of content coming all season long, including all-important week 1 as games and the data coming in will change, and we've got you covered here. This Fresno State-Purdue matchup at 6.5, 6 was the open for Purdue, but I don't see a lot of people betting Purdue here. I think this is down to 4 now, somewhere along the lines with Fresno State and company. So how are you approaching this week 1 matchup?
Yeah, I'm jumping on that 4 now that it's moved this far. Now, I do think Purdue has a good shot here because, we've mentioned it. There's a lot of question marks with pretty much every team basically going into week 1. We've just seen what the transfers have done. New faces coming in that very well could be improvements for multiple teams, like I said, but it takes some time. And both of these teams, again, are going to be going through that situation here. And I have more confidence in Purdue's changes than I do in Fresno State's changes week 1 here. I mean, Fresno State adds Mikey Keene, the UCF quarterback transfer, but they're going to be very reliant on their rush games here. I know their offensive line is impressive, and they do have a deep running back core here, but they're on the defensive side of the ball. Fresno's secondary is their strength. I mean, their defensive line isn't as impressive as their secondary is, and I think Purdue is going to focus on the rush game here to start as well. I mean, they have a huge offensive line as well as a huge defensive line, so they can match up on both sides of that ball. Their new head coach in Purdue is Ryan Walters, who was a coach under Bielema at Illinois. So I don't have too many concerns about the defense of Purdue there. And the transfer quarterback that Purdue added was Hudson Card out of Texas. So definitely a little bit of a different competition level that he's playing at last year. Neither one, played a whole lot. 75 completions for Card at 69%, and Mikey Keene had 60 completions at 72%. So not a whole lot of production out of these two guys, but Fresno State, 2 out of the last 3 years, has started their season with UConn and Cal Poly. So definitely a more competitive game 1 here for Fresno State. And I think in the battle of the rush games here, I think Purdue does actually win it. I don't know if they have the better rush offense specifically, but I do think that they have the better matchup in this one, and I do have more faith in the changes working quicker for Purdue than I do with the changes kicking in with Fresno State week 1. So I'm going to jump on that 4 on that line change and go with Purdue here for week 1.
It'll be interesting to see if this does this get closer to a field goal throughout the week as we get closer to game time. Now, Steve Merrill, we're going to ship it over to you here. You've got I love this. You got Kentucky and Ball State, a game that might be under the radar for some, but not for you here, my man. Tell me what you're looking at here. Total 49, I believe, in this one. What are you thinking about?
Over 49 between Ball State and Kentucky. Ball State games averaged 50 points. They got outscored 23-27 last year, so nothing crazy in this regard. But they should be better offensively this year for a few reasons. And first of all, the transfer portal. We have to talk about it every season as we head into college football going forward, as you can pick up major impact players instantly that do not have to sit out a year like they had to in the past when transferring from one 1A school to another. And Ball State has a new quarterback, Lane Hatcher, sixth-year quarterback Lane Hatcher, fourth school in 6 seasons. This guy actually started at Alabama, didn't start. He went to Alabama, never played in 2018, and then had a decent career for 3 years at Arkansas State, last year at Texas State. So he'll be a nice upgraded quarterback. They've also got a great running back coming in, fourth-year running back Marquise Cooper, who transferred from another MAC school. He was the leading rusher at Kent last year and ran for over 1,300 yards, was first-team all-conference. So the offense will be better at ball. They'll improve on that 23 points a game. But the key to this over is the Kentucky offense improving. And Kentucky struggled last year offensively. After putting up 32 points in the 2021 season, they only put up 20 points a game last year. However, there's a little bit of an under-the-radar reason why this occurred. They're losing an NFL second-round draft pick and Will Levis at quarterback, so that's a concern normally. But they're bringing in a guy that might be just as good named Devin Leary from NC State. He's a sixth-year transfer, and he arrives after having a 35-touchdown, 5-interception season 2 years ago. Last year was cut short with just 6 starts with a pectoral injury. But the under-the-radar angle that I was talking to the over here is getting their offensive coordinator back. Keep in mind, Kentucky lost their OC last year to the NFL when Liam Cohen went to the Los Angeles Rams. He is now back. So the OC that they had for the 32 points per season is now back, was not here last year. I look for a big increase for Kentucky's offense. I look for Ball State to be better offensively as well. And on top of that, we get a very low total here of just 49 points. It all adds up to Ball State, Kentucky over 49 on Saturday afternoon. And don't forget, if you want my strongest best bets, get them right now with that 7-day special. Steve 7 days and nights, all sports, just $59 at wagertalk.com.
College football is back. And again, go ahead, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button as we have more great content coming your way all college football season long. But more importantly, if you have a question about this week's games, again, whether it be Matt Josephs, whether it be Steve Merrill, whether it be Jeff Michaels, guys, drop it in the comment section below. These guys will be answering them all week long, leading up till kickoff, midweek, and of course, heading right into the weekend. And on behalf of Matt Josephs there, Jeff Michaels, and Steve Merrill, we appreciate the time. Make sure you guys visit them. Sportsmemo.com for Matt Josephs, wagertalk.com for Jeff and Steve. But don't go anywhere. We've got more great game preview breakdowns coming your way. The videos are right here on your screen. Go ahead, smash them, guys, and come back and join us again soon. Good luck.